And we are live.
You can go ahead and start. Linda did distribute the minutes. Do we have any modifications to the minutes? There's Connie there.
Here I
Hi,
am.
Connie.
Hi.
Wow.
There's Don jumping in.
Oh, that's great.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Don. I tell you, I didn't
Go ahead,
see the
Herb.
minutes. Connie, did you get the minutes?
Yeah, I did, but I haven't had a chance to look at them yet.
Well, we can hold those minutes till next meeting,
Okay.
and then everybody will have a chance to review them. And thanks to Linda for getting them out. The next item on the agenda would be the mayor's update.
We just had a council meeting last night. I think you're all there. I gave my update at the council meeting. See any point in doing it again?
Okay. I certainly heard it. Herb was there.
Yep.
Okay.
I hung on every word.
All right. The next item is a consultant's report. I see Andrea's there.
Hello, everybody.
Andrea, let me just begin by saying that the trees look really great, the ones that are being provided, and the guys who are planting them are work beavers. They really go full speed. But
Yeah,
go ahead and
they're
make your
workers.
report. I just wanted to add that in.
Okay, good. Well, speaking of the trees, hopefully the goal would be for all the new trees to get planted today. We have good weather, which is wonderful. And by lunchtime, they had gotten, of course, the one you saw being planted, and then they've got the Hunting Creek trees planted, the one in front of City Hall, which I understand got coordinated with the Eberleys. Is that correct?
Yes, they were able to show up right at the
Right.
moment.
And then the one at the end of Putney Lane, and I think then I was out there for a little bit later in the morning this morning and talked to them, and their goal was to go to Bridgepoint right after lunch. So I'm sure they're at Bridgepoint planting the trees on the exit side. We had a lot. It turns out we have a lot of utilities in that area. As Ron's probably aware. And so we're going to move the tree line back about a foot from the curb. I mean, a foot more from the curb. It'll be about 7 feet from the curb to avoid the utilities. There's cable in there and some other stuff. They're very cognizant of that. But so far, I thought the planting they've done looks good. I hope the Stovers were pleased with the tree in Harrods Creek Park.
I think they were. We had a good turnout there. Must have been at least 6 family members there, and Linda Wardell also showed up.
Oh, did she? She made it? Oh, that's nice.
And myself, yeah.
Right.
How many trees do we have
Their
total,
plaques
Andrea?
that they provided look very nice.
Yeah, I went and looked at it. I just couldn't make it at the time it was being planted, but it looks very nice. There's 17 trees, Ron.
Sweet. Just have them, if you would, get a hold of them, have them bring the extras back here to the extra guards back here to City Hall. Right. So we got them.
How many did you give them? 20?
20.
Okay. Yeah.
One thing, if it was mentioned to the Steuben family that maybe we got photos of them with the tree, and that maybe would that be okay if it was in a future newsletter, and they said it would be fine. So it might be something, just another thing for Ron to be thinking about.
If you could give me names, so we're not just sticking a picture in there. I got the Stover family. We need to get names for who's in the picture.
That could probably be done.
It just looks better rather than just
Sure.
sticking
Yeah,
a
oh,
picture
yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
Sure. I have, so everything else, I talked to Ron for some of you that weren't on the email. I talked to Ron by email and asked if he could have the Princeton elm in Cowley Park. That's the tree that went in where the big oak tree came out, straightened and staked. It tends to have a little bit of a bend in the trunk about 4 feet up. So he graciously said he'd take care of that. So that's great. And I hate to bring it up, but I saw one more hazard tree that really you should look at. I haven't had a chance to send the photo out, but it's a maple, and it's at that same property on the corner of Hunting Creek Drive and Riding Ridge. The address is 7509 Hunting Creek Drive. That's the address where Lee and I had seen 2 trees on the Riding Ridge side of that property earlier in the summer or
Is this on
earlier in the fall.
Same property, you're saying?
It's the same property, but it's out near the street. It's at the corner, the right front corner, pretty close to both Hunting Creek Drive and Riding Ridge, and it's very decayed. There's a lot of trunk decay. You'll see the center leader of the tree has died back and it's decayed. I mean, it has bark missing on the trunk. You know, it's pretty obvious it's not in good shape. So I can send a photo out of it to you all. I just didn't get a chance before the meeting today.
Sure.
So,
What species is that? I missed that.
it's a maple. It's another maple, Lee.
Other than the maple.
Yeah, I think it's a red maple. I noticed the new trees were planted like the mayor had said. Is it called hunting? What's it called? Hunting green. And they look like great trees. There's one tree I would just comment on that is planted directly to the right of their entrance road off of Hunting Creek Drive. It's planted kind of in a low area, almost like in a drainage area. I could send you all a photo, but it's really in a bad spot. Like they should have graded the location and brought everything back to grade. They just kind of planted it in a hole there, so to speak, a very low area. It's a drainage area. So I don't think that tree's going to do real well there. But I know it's on private property. I'm just mentioning it to you all.
Barb, you have a contact there, right?
Well, I know Kevin, yeah. But LP&D.
I don't know who their landscaping company was. Did you ever see when you?
Yeah, but Kevin's on top of everything, it seems like.
Right. Well, you might mention it to him because I think he would agree if he saw it. It's really, it's not like a finished grade for the area. It's kind of where they dug out, some soil and I don't know, they put some utilities in and it's just wasn't back to a finished grade. And the other thing I noticed on those trees is they didn't cut the twine. Like when you plant a tree, the root ball, the burlap around the root ball has twine that is interlaced around the root ball and up and ties around the base of the trunk. And they didn't cut the twine. It doesn't appear to me, and I didn't look at every one of those trees, but I noticed a few of them at least that they didn't cut the twine at the base of the root ball. So, and that twine is, sometimes that twine is biodegradable, but this twine is more like a nylon twine. Really should be cut and loosened because otherwise when the trunk diameter increases over time, those trees will get girdled. So I don't know, maybe they're going to come back and do that, but those are just a couple things I noticed about the planting. But the quality of the trees looks great.
What kind are they?
They're maples. They're red maples.
They plant them too close together?
It depends on what variety they are, John. And I don't know I can't really tell the varieties apart when they're,
Well, I'm looking at their plan right
I
now.
think they'll be okay. I mean,
I'm looking at their,
is for them to grow together, you know, over time. Like kind of form a line. Right.
they call, I mean, what my note was sugar maple.
They're sugar maples. They look like red maples. I guess they could be sugar maples. Maybe I need to look at them closer, but they're definitely maples.
Now, I would tell you what he submitted had, you know, there was a major revision. So maybe the trees were changed, you know, because what he showed was it was a much bigger, many more lots. And
Right.
I don't know if you remember at the meeting, he said there's a possibility of a change. It really is. So maybe they changed the trees too.
You mean he increased the number of lots or decreased?
No, they decreased it.
Oh, that's
Cut it from 22 to 10 to 11.
Yeah.
They halved the number of lots, made the lots bigger.
Connie, if you want to move over, I think the price 299,000 can get you a really choice one. That's the lot, Connie.
Oh, anything to be close to you, Herb.
Is that what the lots are, 299 and up?
And then 199.
Oh, okay. Well, they're very nice trees. They're very good quality. I think it'll be nice to have some trees along that area.
Oh, it'd be great.
Mention that. I don't want to damper the excitement of getting some new trees in Onion Creek. So that's all I have, I think.
Thank you. And Herb, if you have an opportunity to contact your friend, maybe a good idea.
Yeah, I'll just tell him, you know, I mean, I realize it's private. Just say, Kevin, you might want to take a look.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he'll see what I mean about that one tree, kind of
And-
playing in the low area.
And on a separate item, I noticed Sylvia's with us. Great, Sylvia. Can you hear us? That's
I
great.
can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hi.
Are you still in London?
Oh, I'm in my office, unfortunately.
All right.
Back to reality.
It happens. Then moving on with the agenda, the next item I had was memorial plaques, which has proven to be a little bit of a headache. We promised the two donors that they would get their tree and a plaque. Turns out we needed to supply the plaques, and we didn't probably charge enough money. So we need to order a couple plaques. I sent a note out to Forestation board members some time ago. There are numerous plaque suppliers. The way the Stovall plaque work was that they provided the plaque and around glued it onto a big stone he got at Lowe's or Home Depot. And it's a very good way of doing it because it keeps the plaque from being lifted as a vandal item. It would be a little inconvenient, and certainly nobody's going to walk off with it. And so I located a couple sources for plaques, but we would need probably anywhere from $200 to $400 total out of the mayor's contingency fund or some other tree planting fund to buy those plaques. I did get the wording from both donors as to what they want on the plaque, on their own individual plaques. And with the okay to order these plaques, I will go ahead and come up with some plaques within that budget range.
What's the total amount that you estimate?
It'd be less than $400.
I really like the idea of having a stone plaque. That sounds
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
neat.
Well, that was Ron's idea.
No, I'm just asking the price, the overall price.
Well, the overall price would be less than $400. That's for two plaques.
That's the total.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get them and I'll pay for it.
Okay. And I'll get the details, and then maybe City Hall, John Carter or other one can order them so it goes right through the city. All righty.
Are
But
they
the
gonna
plaque
be glued on a
looked
stone?
really good on the stone. That's a good idea. Thank you. That's really, they really liked it. It was neat.
Did they? Oh, good.
It makes a nice job, and Ron has it really beautifully placed. And these plaques would be like 4 by 6 inches, something like that, or the biggest one with that Stover plaque was 6 by 8. Okay. Next item, a lot of people are interested is code enforcement. This goes back to a meeting we had a little earlier in the month with the chief, and I see the chief was on here, and with Rick Wilson and the mayor. Rick is having trouble finding time to follow up on some of the tree hazardous tree situations where actually letters have gone out to homeowners, and in a couple of cases, no apparent action by the homeowner to remove the tree. Andrea, on her own initiative, issued a report about coincidental with time we had that meeting, covering 15 trees where the board had identified hazardous situations which need remediation that had occurred since about July, about the last 6 months. Most of them have already been taken care of by the owners, but a couple definitely need followed up. According to my reading of the which established a forestation board, the remedial action is, or having remedial action happen, is really responsibility of the city. The mayor proposed at that meeting that maybe a special enforcement officer would have to be hired to do this work. I don't personally have any objection. That would be great. However, going back to our code enforcement officer, there really isn't that much work to do, in a sense. We have maybe a couple cases where the officer would have to contact the homeowner, property owner, ask them why they hadn't done it, when are they going to do it, et cetera, and tell them if they didn't do it, they're going to be fined, and they would still face a requirement of removing or cutting back on the tree, whatever.
Lee,
Yes, ma'am.
would it make sense to have whoever is designated to do that to also check up on people who are supposed to plant trees to replace the ones they've taken down? Remember?
Yes, yeah, we had 2 cases in the last several years where, going back just a little bit, there's actually a provision in the ordinance that anyone who removes a tree in the right of way, the so-called public tree, which is defined in the ordinance, has to have written approval from the forestation board before they do take such action. And we had at least 2 cases where people didn't. In other times in the past, actually, people have come to us and asked, they're aware of the regulation, but sometimes apparently they're not. And the 2 cases I'm referring to, we discovered, or actually Connie, I think, discovered both of those cases. They're both in Sutherland. We contacted the property owner. We invited them to participate in our meetings, and they did, and they committed to replace the trees, but it was, let's say, a weak commitment. And one property owner alleged that they did put in 2 trees, which is what we asked, which was that they had removed. another property owner, I actually called up after the last Arbor Fest and say, look, we had surplus trees, you put these trees in, basically you'll meet your commitment, and they did that. But it would be good if the code enforcement person would take care of that.
You know,
Oh,
Let me
they,
stop you right
they
there, Lee.
planted them in their
Yes,
Let me
sir.
backyard.
stop you right there.
I mean, they
I
weren't.
spent, let me finish.
Replaced. They were, we just have to take their word for it that they planted those
finish,
trees because you
please.
can't see them.
Yeah,
I want to tell you that I spent a considerable amount of time digging through the entire Forestation Board ordinance. And code enforcement is entirely separate from enforcing the orders of the Forestation Board. Code enforcement cites, just been told to move closer. Code enforcement cites people for violations of the ordinances.
I'm aware of that ordinance. Actually, I have a copy of it that has nothing to do with
You
forestation.
please let me finish, Lee.
Sure,
You've done
Sure.
all the talking. It's my turn.
sure.
When the code enforcement officer issues a citation and the person who receives the citation doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to comply, that matter then goes before a separate entity called the Code Enforcement Board. And they hear the appeal and they decide the matter. And if they decided against the resident, it then can go to the court downtown. But in any event, it's the Code Enforcement Board that decides the amount of the fine that the person will have to pay until they comply. Okay, that's code enforcement. On the other hand, when this body, the Forestation Board, orders that a tree be taken down or some other remedial action, we do issue the letters to the individual that has the tree that's causing the problem. But if the person declines to do what the letter that we send tells them, it is then up to the Forestation Board and not anybody else to decide on the amount of their fine. If the person wants to appeal from that, they can, but it doesn't go to the Code Enforcement Board. It goes to the entire city council. My point is simply that these are two separate, distinct things. And I'm really tired of being beat up about the fact that our Code Enforcement Board officer isn't out there enforcing orders of the Forestation Board. It's not his job.
Okay, can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I served on the Kentucky Board of Architects. That's a state board. Believe it or not, there's a lot of architects that come in this state and they aren't licensed. You have to be licensed in this state to provide architecture. You know, it's a safety thing. But we had our own enforcement thing, so I think we can get a consultant, you know, that can help us. So I think we can solve that. I think Lee and I talked earlier, and I think you talked about that. So I think that's the direction we ought to go.
Yeah, but how much is it going to cost?
Well, what the state did is they had people on an hourly basis. It's an hourly, you know, amount. I mean, we'd have to come to agreement what we think's reasonable, but I know people can do that. There's retired people well, I will admit, architects are used to going out enforcing that the buildings get built like the way they drew them. So they're not that shy about telling people about enforcement. And there's people, you know, I mean, this is for good, you know, this is, we really don't want to fine people. We really would like for them to understand that it's important. No branches hanging over the tree, you know, you can ask my good friend Alan Laughlin's wife, who was riding down I can't think of where Gingerwood is, and a tree fell into her car and damaged, hurt her. No, it was actually Cardinal Harbor. So I think we can handle it. You don't say I don't see it being a big a deal. So why don't we just do that? We might need some. Yeah, because we have any budget money for something like this, but I bet the mayor can make some. Or we have to wait 6 months to the new budget. That's just my opinion.
Anybody else have a comment?
That's kind of what I suggested when the chief and I met with Lee about a week ago.
My thought would be this must still flow through the city. The ordinance is very specific about the city's responsibilities. And secondly, the Forestation Board has no staff and really no budget. We don't spend any money which isn't budgeted for a specific purpose, and it goes through the city in every
Are
case.
you part of the city?
I think the city would be, the consultant would be like Andrea, the city,
should work for the city. That person would work for the city. Right. That's my point. I agree with that.
I mean,
Isn't
I
the
don't feel,
Forestation Board part of the city?
Say it again?
Keep focusing on the word city.
Yes.
What is the Forestation Board if it's not part of the city? It's part of the city's ordinances.
Well, I'm referring to the first sentence, section 14.
I know what you're referring to.
Action.
Keep focusing on the word city, and I'm saying the Forestation Board is the city. It's part of the city.
Yes and no, sir. Don't argue, but the sentence begins, the city, upon written confirmation from the Forestation Board, in consultation with the professional arborist, et cetera, shall have the right to remove, remove trees. So there's a definite distinction in this ordinance between the city and the Forestation Board, and everything needs to go through the city. It has to be a city function, not our function. We do have the right to, under the Forestation Board, to establish the amount of fine within the limits set by the ordinance. But the fine would have to, first of all, we don't like to fine people. And secondly, the fine would have to be imposed by the city, collected by the city.
I think the solution that Herb brought up is kind of the best of both worlds, that we have a specialized consultant with the correct expertise to follow up when there is a tree issue, and he is sort of a liaison between forestation and the city.
Yeah, Linda, I totally agree.
I know in the city of Anchorage that fines that are levied through the Forestation Board, their forestry board, they don't have in their ordinance that they have the ability to make a resident take a tree down on private property. But if there's some type of fine that is levied by the forestry board, let's say for taking trees down. Well, if they take trees down without a permit, yes, they can be held accountable and fined. And or in other situations, if they start a construction project near trees, or just various things that would injure trees on private property, yes, they can be issued a fine and or stop work order. And those fines are issued either by, they are issued through the city, either by the police or the city maintenance director. Usually it's one of the police, I believe.
Andrea,
They learned early on that in the beginning stages back in the 80s, when their ordinance was developed, originally it started with forestry board members were trying to deliver fines or penalties of some type, and it was very difficult to have residents issuing fines to other residents in the same city. So that's how they handle it. They handle it through the city. Any fines that are levied by their forestry board, but it might be a different situation the way your ordinance reads.
Andrea, do they actually fine people? I mean,
Yes,
they
absolutely.
do.
Yep. They issue tree permits for work to be done. And so that's part of what, I mean, they have a different ordinance and different things that they do, but if, for instance, like I take forestry appointments every Monday morning there, and they are for people that are doing construction around trees. Maybe there's a plumber or a utility line that has to go in on a home, and that has an area that's going to be trenched near trees, and they have to have permits that are approved to do that work. And if that work is done without a permit, or trees are taken down in the city on private property without a permit, they have tree removal permits that must be submitted and approved first. If they're taken down without those permits, then they oftentimes are fined. Yes. Or sometimes there's stop work orders in the terms of if a construction project is underway on a private property.
What do they do if the fines aren't paid?
The people have the right to appeal the fine to City Hall. I'm not City Hall, excuse me, their City Council, excuse me. And the City Council will hear their side of the story, so to speak. And then I think the City Council will make the final call. Very rarely has any of them gone to the City Council. It's only been in a couple extreme cases that I'm aware of. I mean, if we don't really want to fine people, and if we do, there's a range set in their ordinance, and if most of the time it would be on the low end of whatever that range is. So that's just an FYI.
Lee, have we ever fined anyone? Ever?
We fined the homeowners association at Bridgepoint $50. They had engaged Greenhaven, actually, I think it was a fine company.
And then what was the infraction, Lee? What did we do? What did Bridgepoint do?
What they did, Sylvia, was they engaged, I think it was Greenhaven, to rework the trees on all the medians, okay? In the city area of Bridgepoint only in Bridgepoint,
Okay.
to rework the medians. At that point,
Like they pruned them? Is that what you mean? They pruned them?
they were taking trees out and putting trees in.
Okay. That was
That's
before mine.
that's what they were doing. And so actually a resident of Bridgepoint called in to the city, and the city dispatched a police officer to Bridgepoint and told them to cease and desist. And they did. And we later had a meeting with different Bridgepoint representatives and explained to them that they needed to get city approved to rework or change the trees, take out trees in those medians. And that was the end of it. And that's the only fine that Forestation Board has ever imposed. And I just wanted to add, I don't think there'd be many fine situations under our ordinance. Once the follow-up was done with the affected property owner, I would suspect that almost all of them would just go ahead and do whatever they needed to do rather than generate a fine situation. And in our two past cases where people took out trees without permission, we worked with them to try to avoid having to fine residents. We didn't want to do that. We'd rather have trees planted.
I think you bent over backwards for that guy on Wyndham.
We did.
Yeah, 3 trees.
Yeah.
I'd like to say another word on this subject. I want to speak in practical terms about our code enforcement officer, Rick Wilson. First of all, I want to say he's the best we've ever had. He works part-time and he does not have time to do your work and everything else he does. He is in charge of approving all new construction, which is occurring these days. He's in charge of regulating and overseeing construction of fences, additions to homes, patios, all that sort of thing. He is very busy. I get a report. He works 3 days a week. I get a report every next day of what he's been up to. This is one day of Rick Wilson's business. He does not have time to do more than that. He's busy.
Oh, well, I think we should go ahead and follow up.
Jeff, do you want to say anything about Rick?
Oh, I don't say anything about him. I was going to say we should follow up on your suggestion and Herb's comments and get a mechanism to hire a special enforcement agent. Would work for the city on a very limited basis, I would think, but would follow up. And I guess we could engage that person to send out the letters as well as to follow up on enforcement issues. They're taking that job off of Rick. Rick has been sending out the letters.
He's been doing that.
Yes, he has been doing that, and then I think he has my name in those letters because whenever a batch of letters goes up, I get a bunch of phone calls from residents asking why they got a letter, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me ask you a question, Lee. Do we know, or anybody that has the answer, on the cases, the letters that have been sent out where the cases are still open and where the trees have not been removed, do we know that they got the letter? I mean, are they sent regular mail or are they sent certified mail, or have you gotten any calls from any of those people, Lee, that still have open cases?
There's two open cases that I'm aware of. And one of them, the one on Wyndham Parkway, the property is listed as owned by a woman.
Right.
I'm pretty sure she got a letter, and maybe a month after the letter was sent out, I got a call from a man. I was unclear actually as to his relationship, or whether he was part of the property owner or whatever. And he said he would take care of the incident. He says well aware that that property has a number of dead trees right in front of it, and then also one large one. Remember we saw the back.
That's the one you and I looked at, right?
Yeah, we looked at those. You marked them with red paint
right
on the front, and we saw some other ones around which we didn't mark.
Right.
Anyhow, that was maybe a month after that, so that would be at the latest September. Nothing has happened since then. So
yeah, that's case number 721, just to be clear.
And one of those trees is very large and sits very prominently in the front of the property. Could easily fall on the street.
Well, there's one to the left of their driveway that could
That's what I'm talking about,
that's
right?
been standing dead for
goes
probably over a year.
If that goes over, it's going to be bad.
And then we have the big oak tree that's down on the Wallace Farm property, down on Sutherland Farm Drive.
Right.
And we have an ash tree that's very hazardous, I think, that now, as of our last meeting, let me see, that ash tree, I'm trying to tell you which case number it is. Well, it's 1821. It's the one, it's on Fox Harbor Road. It's the one by a mailbox that was leaning over the road.
Right. Yes, I knew that.
I think as of our last meeting that they hadn't been mailed a letter. Now, do we know?
That's right.
Have they been mailed a letter?
I didn't bring that case up because there's not much time had elapsed between
right
when this issue came up and when the letter was sent. I think the letter was sent. A lot of the cases got held up for a while Ron was medical leave.
Right, so
Sent out
I
since
was
then.
just trying to go through the open cases.
Yeah,
That's 7204 Fox Harbor Road, I think. And then there was one at 6804 Gunpowder, which at our last discussion, Lee, I think that was the one that Rick Wilson had a conversation with. It's a tree that's been standing dead at the left front corner of their house for a number of months.
yeah.
So we have what, how many cases? I mean, we have the Wyndham Parkway, the Fox Harbor Road, the Gunpowder Court, or whatever that street is, Gunpowder, 6804 Gunpowder,
It's Gunpowder. It's right at the intersection with Gunpowder Court.
right? And then we have the one on Sutherland Farm Road that it's actually on the Wallace property that some of you looked at with me several months ago, that big oak
Right.
tree. And then there's one at 8012 Wyandotte, which I don't know if they've actually, I mean, I don't know if they've more recently got a letter, or I think they're probably just got a letter more recently, but I'm not sure. So a couple of those, like you said, we should give them more time, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they wouldn't be
Respond.
in violation. There's a 45-day period
Right,
that's written in the ordinance. But certainly the one on Wyndham Parkway
yeah.
and the oak that belongs to Wallace Farm have that time period is long expired and should be followed up. Right.
Let me ask something about that oak tree. Is
Yes,
it,
sir.
I was there with y'all, and I know branches are hanging over the road. Do we want just those branches removed, or does the whole tree need to come down?
I'd say the tree needs to be made safe, or they need to remove it. I mean, there's more issues than just branches hanging over the road. I mean, there's a big trunk that those branches are attached to that could also fall over on the Prospect side, the Sutherland Farm side. If they wanted to make it safe, prune it down to 30 feet, 20, 30 feet, leave it for wildlife, that's an option.
It is. That's even in the ordinance.
Right.
When possible.
And
leave
that would
the
save
trees in
them
safe condition
a
for
lot of money.
wildlife. Right. We need to have a mechanism for finding this new special enforcement person. Herb, do you have a suggestion, or Andrea have a suggestion, or anybody have a suggestion?
Yeah, Herb's not going to be quiet.
Right.
Right. Not in this.
Speak up, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, we might just need to have a little committee meeting, not just a board meeting. But let me, with Andrea's help, I mean, as a consultant, is that $25 an hour? Is it, nobody's really going to get rich on it, but some people, like to do public service. But I do know some people that have expertise that would be interested. So let me do some homework on that, and maybe we can get sort of a current list of the ones we really need to deal with.
There's just a few.
Yeah.
Right at the moment.
That's great, Herb. That's great.
That's really great, Herb.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Lee, you don't have the person's name then that you talked to, the gentleman that may live on the Wyndham Parkway address, right?
I kept a sort of a list of calls. I'll have to look and see if I recorded that one. I probably did, but I'll take a look, and I may even have his number.
I mean, in some cases, it may be people outright not wanting to do it. In other cases, they may be just busy and just put it to the side and are not getting to it,
Right. Yeah.
So we don't really know. So it'd kind of be nice to have somebody that could follow up to see what their status, even if they're a definite no, darn it, I'm not doing that, or I have plans to do that in a month or 2 months or something.
Well, you and I have we've met with different people who said they would do it in a month, and then they call back up and say it's been 6 weeks, and we say that's fine, and they do it actually.
Right,
There's a lot of different reactions.
right.
Before you
Well,
guys,
here's a,
Andrea, we still had hazardous cases, and I hired a person who worked for Limb Walker, okay, and which is a conflict, but he and I would go around and he would say that tree is hazardous, and in one case, a homeowner came out while we were standing there on Fox Harbor Road, happened to be, and we explained what we were doing, and then the person from Limwalker said, well, we could take this down for X dollars, and the guy practically cried, you know, that,
Right.
and it's a bad situation when
Right.
that happens, you know, and
well,
so
here's the John, here's Lee.
follow up, that's great. So unless somebody else has any other comment, we can move on to the next topic. Okay?
Yep.
All right, the next item is a pre-city certification, which is just basically getting some numbers together, which the city bookkeeper has already provided to me, and I circulated those around. That's been fine. We have to get together copies of the articles, and I just went through for another project. We had at least 4 articles for e-blast, and we just need copies of those to send into Arbor Day Foundation, a copy of the proclamation, which I have. And that's showing we had an event and the city had a proclamation. So then this all has to be downloaded and sent to Arbor Day. Ron is the official contact with Arbor Day, and I'm thinking that we could have a meeting with Ron and a couple of us in the next few days or in the immediate future, get together all of this and send or resend in some cases whatever is needed to Tree City Foundation, and we'll be done.
Mhm.
You still need us to send in our hours, Lee?
Yeah.
Say that again. Say that again, Sean.
You asked us for the hours we worked last.
Yes, we definitely need the hours. That's one thing I got, and I have to say I only got hours from Sylvia. But that was, but very good to Sylvia to send them in. Thank you. But I need everybody else's hours too.
But she's an A student.
Yeah,
That's right.
she's a
Well,
lawyer. She knows.
Mine was
how
very
to
easy
say-
to calculate. It wasn't much, so it was easy for me to do it and send it on.
She's a lawyer. She knows how to do.
Your mentor, we're going to try to achieve that.
So could I have a couple volunteers to have a subcommittee meeting, maybe in person at City Hall to just finalize this document, and I set a date up with Ron, maybe.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's Herb and Connie, or Linda didn't. Oh, it's Linda. Okay, great. That'd be fine.
And if you get more than 3 of us, you got to make it public now.
Yeah, we don't want to have public meeting for this. This is administrative stuff.
Well, you got to at least put it out that it's for meeting.
Right. Yeah. So that's enough people, and we'll ask Ron about a date, and then let's try to get together. I'd say either maybe early next week, something like that. Would that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Maybe even at the end of this week, at whatever works for everybody's schedule.
The end of this week doesn't work for me at all.
That doesn't work for you, Herb. So we have to say early.
But you've got plenty of others.
Yeah, I'm leaving town on the 22nd, so I'd like to have it before then. But last year, Linda did the whole job basically by herself. We're not going to have to do that again, but she definitely did.
Let's try either Monday morning or Tuesday morning.
Okay, let's try.
Monday morning is fine. Monday afternoon is not. Tuesday morning is okay.
So either Monday or Tuesday morning,
Mm-hmm.
great. Okay, great. Okay, next item, the Canopy Program. Just to recap, we announced the Canopy Program without a lot of publicity because of timing. Last fall, we actually had 2 people canopy trees. Situation turned out that one of them, their lot was just full of utility lines at a very small lot anyhow. It was on down near the marina, and it made it impossible to plant a tree there. And the other one, Herb, you work with that property
Yeah,
owner, and
that was on the end of a court. That was Randy Swan, and the end of the courts, and there's lots of courts. Basically, there's no right of way, and the pavement and the people's property are almost the same. Most all other places you got some space in between the actual pavement and the property line, but not the courts, not on the end of the courts. And it turned out, Randy, that the only one little place to put it really it was a dumb place. And she said there's no sense in it. So that's when, we're hoping that we build in, we can be a part of a program where it goes in people's front yard, not necessarily in the right of way. And of course, we need to talk to the city attorney about if that's okay. In a way, it's similar to the Arbor Fest. We give residents a tree and they plant it anywhere they want on their property. The city pays for that tree. And the whole deal, it's going to be, it's almost real similar to Arbor Fest. The residents are paying for the planting in this tree canopy program. They're getting a tree free, just like the Arbor Fest people are getting the tree free that the city paid for. So hopefully that can be okay, because it opens the door to a lot more ability for us to actually have tree canopy, trees planted.
So we need to get Chris Gorman to issue a finding that we can broaden the planting area that the resident will use. The whole idea is to certainly put it in the front of the property, because these canopy trees are supposed to provide shade to walking areas if there even is a walking area.
Well, that's where a lot of the heat sink is in this paving out in the parking, the paving area.
I think also next time we advertise it, it should be a lot more succinct, just a small thing like tree canopy program now available or something, just small. And then we'll send them out a letter if they're interested, because I don't think anybody reads through that whole thing. It's just so long. That was in the city.
The big form, the big sign-up sheet.
Yeah.
You're right about that. Maybe if they you have a good point. If they indicate an interest, then we could send them the form, which is longer, their agreement to do this, do that.
Yeah.
So,
just get them on the hook. Idea. Just dangle something in front of them.
Yeah, it's like a lot of things. It's new, so we just got to make more people aware of it. But I request the mayor to talk to the city attorney and see if that would be acceptable.
Okay, that's good. And we need to ask Andrea about timing to have such a program, and that we would want the trees planted pretty early, so we'd have to work backward from that date. So I'm asking what you think about a good planting date.
I would say the end of March probably.
End of March.
One thing I've run into, we have to, well, it may not affect your resident, be a problem, but it might be good to find out when spring break is, in the spring for some of the schools, because I know we run into problems in other places I work that, you know, was kind of conflicted. But I'd say if we could aim to plant them towards the end of March, and it wouldn't be too early to probably put some little article saying something about it in the newsletter in January, you know, just a
Yeah.
little blurb, like, stay tuned, more to come, or something,
Right.
you know,
That's a
whatever.
really good idea.
And then February, sometime in, you know, if we could get orders back in by the end of like March 1st, and then, you know, hope to have them done by April 1st or end of March, that would be good. Something like that.
Great idea. Let's do
All
that.
right. Connie, could you just draft something up for the newsletter?
Sure.
And then, and I think, as I said before, you have a good idea, just a little teaser.
Yeah,
And,
that's great.
And that helps. Okay.
And what, where do we want to stick it first? I mean, when's next newsletter come out? Do you know?
One just came out last week, so it'll be another month or so.
Should I tell Ron the next one, or?
Yeah, next one, right.
Mhm.
That would probably be after the January council meeting. It'll be late in January.
Yeah, it ought
Okay.
to go in as soon as the next newsletter comes out.
Okay.
And if it's way late, we could go e-blast route. Ron has been very good about sending those out. Was there any other subject or comment anyone wants to make before we end this meeting and set the next meeting date?
I don't have anything.
This has been a great meeting.
Yes, that's right. Progress has been made. Okay, I had looked, normally we meet on the second Tuesday of the month. That happens to be January 11th. Would that work for everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so let's plan on that. I assume it would be by WebEx if we can't get rid of this virus. And
Okay.
That sounds
Yeah.
good.
Some news. I know we're moving, but you know something, that tree in front of City Hall that got planted today, that was a birthday gift.
yes,
Right.
it was.
Maybe a little short little thing people want to give their loved ones a birthday gift. Well, we'll accept trees in our city.
That's great. That's good. Anniversary? Congratulations.
Get a lot of trees funded that way. Actually, we probably would not be overridden, but there's a limited number of sites we have where we could plant a tree on city land.
Yeah, that's
Well, we're getting,
We've had
there's a whole
good
there's a
program.
big development happening in Little Hunting Creek Park, so it
Yeah.
might be some places for some trees.
Yeah. That would be a good one when they get all their construction in. And there are certainly opportunities in Hunting Creek Park itself. We
Yeah.
planted hundreds of trees there, and there's still plenty of space. And some could be planted there.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. So if nothing else, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes. So to move.
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank
Aye.
you all very much, and
Thank
happy
you.
holidays.
Happy holidays to all of you.
That's right.
Yep.
Merry
All right.
Christmas.
Happy holidays.
See you early next week if we meet. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks to
Okay,
all.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.